The holographic display flickered to life in the large classroom aboard Concordia space station. Bright blue light filled the room, showing rows of strange alien faces. Professor Veltara stood at the front, her bug-like body shining under the artificial lights. She had 4 arms and spoke through a small device that changed her clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. "Today we will study apex predators from death worlds," she said, her voice making out clicking noises. "These animals are the best killers that evolution has made." The students sat quietly in their seats. There were many different types of aliens in the class. Some looked like giant insects, others had crystal skin that sparkled, and some needed water tanks to breathe. They all came from different planets across the galaxy. The first video showed huge monsters from a planet covered in poisonous swamps. These creatures had long tentacles and ate animals twice their size. Many students gasped and covered their eyes. The next video showed crystal hunters from another world. They had sharp, glass-like arms that could cut through anything. Then Earth appeared on the screen. "This death world," Professor Veltara said slowly, "has some of the most frightening apex predators in the galaxy." The first Earth animal appeared. It was a great white shark jumping out of dark water with its mouth wide open, showing rows of sharp teeth. Several students immediately dove under their desks to hide. The water-breathing aliens started making panicked sounds through the slits on their necks. In the back row of the classroom, Tom Bradley kept writing notes in his notebook. He looked up at the screen sometimes with mild interest. He was the only human in the class, and he looked very ordinary compared to all the aliens around him. But somehow, this made the other students more nervous than the monsters on the screen. The video changed to show a Siberian tiger walking through a snowy forest. Its bright orange fur had black stripes, and its yellow eyes seemed to look right at everyone in the class. The big cat moved silently between the trees, its powerful muscles moving under its fur. Tom raised his hand up in the air. "Yes, Mr. Bradley?" Professor Veltara said. "That one hunted me once," Tom said in a normal voice, like he was talking about the weather. The entire classroom became completely silent. Even the machines that cleaned the air seemed to stop making noise. What did you say?" the professor asked, her voice shaking. "The tiger. One of them hunted me for 3 days in the mountains when I was 17 years old. I lost my guide in a snow slide and had to walk back to safety alone." The quiet continued until a student in the front row fainted. Her crystal body fell to the floor with a loud crash. "There must be a mistake in translation," whispered Kix, Tom's roommate. He looked like a giant praying mantis and his head turned toward the human. "You mean it chased you away from far away?" Tom shook his head. "No, it stalked me. It followed my trail for 3 days, staying hidden where I could not see it. I could hear it moving through the plants at night. I felt it watching me during the day." Many students started making scared noises that only their own species could hear. Professor Veltara's big compound eyes grew larger, which Tom had learned meant she was very frightened. "And you, lived through this?" she asked very carefully. "I built fires at night to keep it away. I climbed trees when it got too close. I made loud noises when I needed to scare it off. Finally, I reached a village." Tom moved his shoulders up and down. "My sister Emma had it worse. A grizzly bear chased her up a tree for 6 hours when we were camping. My dad got bitten by a shark when he was surfing. My grandma Rose fought off a group of wolves with just her walking stick." The water-breathing alien started making high, sad sounds. 3 more students fell down unconscious. "This is normal for your people." Professor Veltara's translation device had trouble keeping up with her fast clicking. "Pretty normal outdoor experiences, yes. Most children have stories like that. My parents said it builds character." A student with 6 legs raised one of them while shaking. "Your young are put in danger with apex predators on purpose." "We call it going outside," Tom said, trying to be helpful. This time, half the class fainted and fell to the floor. Professor Veltara's 4 arms moved around nervously. She had taught xenobiology for 40 years and had studied the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. She had seen footage of monsters that could eat starships and predators that hunted in the cold of space. But she had never met someone who spoke so calmly about being hunted by apex predators as a child. She looked at Tom Bradley again. He sat there peacefully, still taking notes, waiting for the lesson to continue. His face showed no fear, no pride, no emotion at all. To him, being stalked by one of Earth's most dangerous predators was just another story to share. The professor realized something that made her exoskeleton feel cold. The most dangerous predator in her classroom was not on the screen. It was sitting in the back row, taking notes and waiting patiently for her to continue the lesson. She called an early break and quickly left the room. During the break, most of the alien students stayed far away from Tom. They whispered to each other in their own languages, pointing at him when they thought he was not looking. Tom sat at his desk, eating an apple he had brought from the human section of the station. He seemed completely unaware of the fear he had caused. Kix was the first to approach him. The mantis-like alien moved very slowly, like he was walking toward a dangerous animal that might attack at any moment. His green compound eyes never left Tom's face. "Tom," Kix said quietly, "surely there is a mistake in translation. When you said the tiger hunted you, you meant it saw you from very far away and you ran in the opposite direction, correct?" Tom took another bite of his apple and shook his head. "No, it actually hunted me. Followed my scent trail through the forest. I could see its paw prints in the mud behind me every morning. It stayed about half a mile back most of the time, but it was definitely tracking me." A small group of students had gathered around to listen, but they kept their distance. A blue-skinned nereid in a water suit made a bubbling sound of distress. "But how did you escape such a creature?" she asked, her voice shaking through the water in her helmet. "I did not really escape it," Tom explained. "I made myself too much trouble to catch. Tigers are lazy hunters. They want easy meals. So I made sure I was not easy." Professor Veltara had returned to the classroom, but she stood near the door, ready to run if needed. Her forearms were crossed in front of her chest in a defensive position. "Please explain what you mean by too much trouble," she said carefully. Tom finished his apple and threw the core into the recycling unit. "Well, I kept my fires burning very bright at night. Tigers do not like bright light when they are hunting. During the day, I stayed in open areas where it could not surprise me. When I heard it getting too close, I would bang my metal water bottle against rocks to make noise. Loud, sudden sounds make them nervous." The classroom was completely silent except for the soft humming of the air systems. Several students were taking notes, but their hands were shaking as they wrote. "I walked for 3 days like this," Tom continued. "The tiger followed me the whole time, but it never attacked. On the 3rd day, I reached a small village, and it finally gave up and went to find easier prey." A student with crystal skin raised her hand. "And this experience did not prevent you from returning to such dangerous places?" Tom looked confused by the question. "Why would it? It was actually pretty exciting. I learned a lot about animal behavior. The next summer, I went hiking in Alaska." "Alaska?" Kix asked. "Bear country," Tom said with a small smile. "That is where my sister Emma had her adventure. She was hiking alone when a grizzly bear started following her. These bears are much bigger than tigers, about 800 pounds of muscle and claws. Half the students who were still conscious started making distressed noises. The other half were too scared to make any sound at all. Emma climbed a tree when she saw it getting closer. The bear tried to climb up after her, but she kept moving higher. Bears are good climbers, but they are heavy. The branches could not hold its weight." Professor Veltara's translator device was clicking rapidly as she tried to keep up. "How long did this continue?" "About 6 hours. The bear would try to climb up, the branches would bend, and it would slide back down. Emma just sat there waiting. She had brought snacks and water, so she was not in any real danger." "No real danger," squeaked a small, furry alien near the front of the room. "Well, as long as she stayed in the tree, she was safe. Eventually, the bear got bored and walked away. Emma climbed down and finished her hike. She continued hiking after being trapped by a predator for 6 hours." Professor Veltara's voice went up several octaves. Of course. She had planned a 3-day hike. One bear was not going to ruin her whole trip. A student near the back raised a tentacle. "You mentioned your father was attacked by a shark." Tom nodded. "He was surfing in California. Great white shark, about 12 feet long. It bit his surfboard and knocked him into the water." The Nereid student's water tank started bubbling frantically. "Surfing? What is surfing?" "You ride on top of ocean waves using a floating board. It is very fun." "In water where sharks live," she gasped. "Well, sharks live in most of the ocean," Tom said reasonably. "If we avoided all the places with sharks, we could never go swimming." "But your father was attacked." "Just once. He got back on his board and kept surfing. The shark probably just mistook him for a seal. Once it realized he was not good food, it swam away." Professor Veltara sat down heavily in her chair. "And your grandmother fought wolves with a stick?" Tom's face brightened. "Grandma Rose was amazing. She was 90 years old and still went hiking every week. One day, a pack of wolves surrounded her on a mountain trail. She only had her walking stick, but she knew what to do. Which was what? Kix asked, though he looked like he did not really want to know the answer. She made herself look bigger by raising the stick over her head and started yelling at them in a loud, angry voice. Wolves do not usually attack humans, but they will if they think you are weak or scared. Grandma Rose was definitely not weak or scared. Tom paused and smiled at the memory. She told me later that the hardest part was not laughing when the pack leader turned around and ran away. After the class ended, word spread through Concordia Station faster than a fire in dry grass. By dinner time, every alien on the station had heard about the human student who had been hunted by apex predators and lived to tell about it like it was nothing special. The station's main cafeteria buzzed with nervous conversations in dozens of different languages. Groups of students huddled together at tables, speaking in whispers and looking over at Tom whenever he walked by. He seemed not to notice the attention and sat alone at his usual table, eating what appeared to be a sandwich made with some kind of earth meat. Near the large windows that showed the stars outside, a group of alien researchers had gathered around Nyx, a crystalline who worked in the station's data center. Her transparent body flickered with patterns of light as she spoke, which meant she was very excited or very worried. "I have been looking through the galactic databases all afternoon," Nyx said, her voice making small chiming sounds. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world." The other aliens made various sounds of surprise and fear. Class 12 was the highest danger rating in the galactic classification system. "What does that mean exactly?" asked Mora, a Nereid whose water tank gurgled softly as she spoke. "It means the planet is considered too dangerous for most intelligent life to visit, let alone live on," Nyx explained. "The gravity is too strong for most species. The atmosphere has poisonous gases. The weather changes violently and without warning." Kix, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "But Tom makes it sound like a normal place to live." "That is because humans are not normal," Nyx continued, her light patterns becoming more rapid. "Look at these statistics. Earth has something called natural disasters that happen regularly. Earthquakes that can destroy entire cities. Storms with winds that move faster than most spacecraft. Waves of water called tsunamis that can be taller than buildings." A small, furry alien named Pip raised one of his 6 paws. "And humans live through these events." "Not only live through them," Mora added, consulting her own data pad, "but they have built their entire civilization around expecting them to happen. They have warning systems, emergency procedures, and something called disaster movies that they watch for entertainment." The group fell silent as they tried to understand this concept. The idea of watching disasters for fun was completely foreign to most galactic species. "There is more," Nyx said, her glow becoming dimmer with worry. "I found information about human recreational activities. They have something called extreme sports." "What are those?" Pip asked, though his tone suggested he did not really want to know. "Activities that deliberately put humans in danger for no practical purpose," Nyx read from her data pad. "Jumping from high places with only a piece of cloth to slow their fall. Throwing themselves down mountains on pieces of wood or metal. Diving into underwater caves where they might get trapped and drown." Kix's mandibles clicked rapidly, which was a sign of extreme agitation. "They put themselves in mortal danger for fun?" "It appears so," Mora confirmed. "And they call people who do these activities athletes, and give them prizes for being the best at risking their lives." A new voice joined the conversation. Professor Veltara had approached their table, looking tired and worried. Her usually neat exoskeleton appeared disheveled, and her forearms moved nervously. "I have been researching as well," she said quietly. "What you have discovered is only the beginning. Humans do not just survive on their death world. They have conquered it completely." The professor sat down heavily and activated her own data display. "They live in every climate zone on their planet. From frozen areas where the temperature can kill most life forms, to deserts so hot that water boils away, to jungles filled with poisonous plants and deadly animals." The holographic display showed images of human cities in all these environments. Gleaming buildings in frozen landscapes, settlements in burning deserts, and towns surrounded by dense, dangerous-looking forests. "But how is this possible?" Pip squeaked. "They adapted," Professor Veltara explained. "When their environment tried to kill them, they learned to kill it back. They discovered fire and used it to cook food and stay warm. They made tools from rocks and bones. They domesticated other animals to help them hunt and work." Nyx's light patterns were now flashing rapidly in what looked like panic. Professor, are you saying that humans are apex predators? The professor was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the cafeteria continued its normal activity, but their small group sat in tense silence. I have studied dangerous species from across the galaxy for 40 years, Professor Veltara finally said. I have seen creatures that can tear apart starships with their bare claws. I have documented predators that hunt in the vacuum of space. But I have never encountered a species like humans. What makes them different? Mora asked softly. Most apex predators are powerful because of their physical abilities. Humans are different. They are apex predators because of their minds. They do not just react to danger, they think about it. They plan. They prepare. They turn every threat into a learning experience. The professor looked across the cafeteria to where Tom sat, still eating his sandwich and reading what appeared to be a textbook about galactic history. That student survived being hunted by a tiger not because he was stronger or faster than it, she continued. He survived because he understood how the tiger thought and used that knowledge against it. He turned himself from prey into something that was not worth the effort to catch. And he learned to enjoy the experience, Kix added quietly. That, said Professor Veltara, is what makes humans truly dangerous. They do not just survive their death world. They have learned to love it. For the next 3 days, Tom found himself eating alone in the cafeteria. Every time he sat down at a table, the aliens nearby would quickly finish their meals and leave. When he walked into the recreation center, conversations stopped and activities paused until he left. Even the automatic food dispensers seemed to work faster when he approached them, as if they too wanted to get away from him quickly. Tom tried not to let it bother him, but it was hard to ignore. He had come to Concordia Station excited to learn about different species and make friends from across the galaxy. Instead, he seemed to frighten everyone just by existing. On the 4th day, Kix finally approached him in their shared dormitory room. The mantis-like alien stood near the door, ready to run if needed. His large compound eyes watched Tom carefully as he spoke. Tom, Kix said slowly, the other students are worried about you. Tom looked up from his homework. He had been reading a book about Earth history, which Kix had once described as a catalogue of disasters and wars. I noticed, Tom said sadly. I have not hurt anyone here. I have never even raised my voice or gotten angry. But you have survived being hunted by apex predators, Kix replied. Multiple times. Your entire species has. The others think this makes you dangerous. Tom closed his book and gestured for Kix to sit down, though his roommate chose to stay near the door. Kix, we are not predators, Tom said patiently. We are survivors. There is a big difference. What do you mean? Tom thought for a moment about how to explain this. Look, humans did not evolve to have sharp claws or big teeth or poison like many animals on Earth. We are actually pretty weak compared to most life on our planet. But we developed something else instead. What? The ability to keep going when everything else gives up. Intelligence to solve problems. The skill to adapt to new situations. Tom smiled, but it was a sad smile. When that tiger was hunting me, I did not try to fight it. That would have been stupid. Instead, I made myself too much trouble to bother with. Kix's head tilted to one side, which was his species' way of showing confusion. You negotiated with it? In a way, yes. I showed it that hunting me would take more energy than hunting something else. Predators are basically lazy. They want easy meals that do not fight back or run away or cause problems. And when your sister was chased by the bear? Tom laughed softly. Emma just waited it out. She knew that bears have short attention spans. If you can stay safe long enough, they get bored and go look for easier food. She continued hiking after being trapped in a tree for 6 hours. Of course. One bad experience should not ruin something you love doing. Kix was quiet for several minutes, processing this information. Finally, he spoke again. Tom, the other students have been researching your planet. They found out that Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. They learned about your natural disasters and extreme sports. They think humans actively seek out danger for entertainment. Tom nodded. Some of us do. But it is not because we want to get hurt. It is because overcoming challenges makes us feel alive and strong. Can you explain this more? Tom stood up and walked to their small window, which showed the peaceful stars outside. On Earth, nothing is guaranteed to be safe. The ground can shake without warning. The weather can change from sunny to deadly in minutes. Animals can attack you. Plants can poison you. Even the water can be dangerous. He turned back to Kix. So humans learned to live with uncertainty. We learned that the only way to survive was to be ready for anything. We developed skills and tools and knowledge that could help us handle whatever came next. But why do you seem to enjoy these dangerous experiences? Tom smiled, and this time it was a real smile. Because when you survive something that could have killed you, it proves that you are strong and smart and capable. It reminds you that you can handle difficult situations. It makes you confident about facing the next challenge. Kix moved a little closer, though he still stayed near the door. So when you talk about being hunted by a tiger, you are not bragging about being dangerous. You are sharing a story about learning and growing. Exactly, Tom said. That experience taught me about animal behavior, about surviving in the wilderness, about staying calm under pressure. It made me a better person. And your family stories? Same thing. Emma learned patience and quick thinking from her bear encounter. Dad learned respect for the ocean from his shark bite. Grandma Rose learned that confidence and courage can be more powerful than physical strength. Kix finally sat down, though he chose a chair across the room from Tom. Your species turns trauma into wisdom. We try to, Tom said. Not everyone succeeds, but most humans believe that difficult experiences can make you stronger if you let them. The other students think you are a predator because you survived being hunted. Tom shook his head. I am not a predator, Kix. I am just someone who has learned that the universe can be dangerous, but it does not have to be scary if you are prepared for it. He sat back down and reopened his history book. The real difference between humans and predators is this: predators hunt others to survive. Humans help others to survive. When I was being stalked by that tiger, my first thought was not about hurting it. My first thought was about how to get away safely so I could return home to my family. Kix was quiet for a long time, thinking about what Tom had said. Finally, he spoke. Tom, I think I understand now. You are not dangerous to us. You are dangerous to danger itself. Tom smiled. I like that way of putting it. The emergency alarm began screaming through Concordia Station at 3 in the morning, waking everyone from their sleep. Red lights flashed in the hallways and a computer voice spoke in 17 different languages. Code Black. Dangerous creature has escaped from Research Section C. All students and non-essential workers must go to safe areas immediately. Do not leave your rooms unless ordered. Tom was already putting on his clothes when Kix burst through their door. The mantis-like alien's exoskeleton was pale with fear, and his compound eyes were wide with panic. Tom, we have to get to the evacuation shuttles, Kix said, his voice shaking. Something terrible has escaped from the research labs. What kind of creature? Tom asked, pulling on his hiking boots. A Ravager from Kepler 186f. It is a Class 9 apex predator. Security cannot get close enough to use their tranquilizer guns because it has armor plating and poisonous breath. Through their small window, Tom could see alien students running through the corridors toward the shuttle bays. Their movements looked panicked and disorganized. Security guards stood far back from the research section, their weapons drawn but useless against the creature's thick hide. Tom grabbed his backpack, the same one he had used during his hiking trips on Earth. Where are you going? Kix asked in horror. To help, Tom said simply. Tom, this thing is a Class 9 apex predator. It has claws that can cut through metal, breath that can melt plastic, and skin that can change colors to blend in with its surroundings. So did the tiger, Tom replied calmly. But it still needed to eat, sleep, and breathe. Same basic rules apply to all living things. But this is completely different. Tom stopped at the door and looked back at his roommate. Kix, I know this station's layout better than a confused alien predator does. I have been here for 6 months and have explored every maintenance tunnel and storage area. You cannot be serious. Besides, Tom continued, everyone else is too scared to think clearly. Sometimes you need someone who has dealt with dangerous animals before. Kix watched in disbelief as Tom walked out of their room and headed not toward the evacuation shuttles, but toward the research section where the creature was loose. What happened next became a legend among the students of Concordia Station. While security forces stayed far back and waited for reinforcements, Tom Bradley moved through the station's maintenance tunnels with the quiet skill of someone who had learned to track and avoid dangerous animals. He used his knowledge of predator behavior, gained from his encounters with Earth's wildlife, to predict where the Ravager would go next. The creature was confused and frightened, just like any animal would be in an unfamiliar place. It was looking for a way out, but the station's design made no sense to it. Tom realized that if he could guide its movements, he could lead it away from the areas where people were hiding. He did not try to fight the Ravager. That would have been suicide. Instead, he used the same techniques that had kept him alive during his encounter with the tiger. He made noise in certain areas to drive the creature away from populated sections. He controlled the lighting in the corridors, using the beast's natural fear of bright lights to steer it toward the cargo bay. When the Ravager tried to double back toward the residential areas where students were hiding, Tom blocked its path with barriers made from storage containers. He had learned from studying the creature's data files that it did not like tight spaces, so he left only one path open, the route to the large, empty cargo bay where it could be safely contained. The whole operation took 4 to 7 minutes. When security finally worked up the courage to approach the cargo bay, they found the exhausted Ravager pacing back and forth in the large space. Near the entrance, Tom sat on a storage crate, eating a sandwich from his emergency food supplies and reading a book on his datapad. "It is tired now," Tom told the amazed security chief. "Should be easy to tranquilize." Word of what Tom had done spread through the station even faster than news of the creature's escape had. Within hours, every alien on Concordia knew that the human student had single-handedly captured a Class 9 apex predator without weapons, without backup, and without getting hurt. But more importantly, they began to understand what Tom had been trying to tell them. The next day, instead of avoiding Tom in the cafeteria, groups of students approached his table. They wanted to know how he had done it. They asked questions about predator behavior, about staying calm in dangerous situations, about the difference between being brave and being reckless. Professor Veltara announced that she was adding a new section to her xenobiology course, Coexistence with Dangerous Species. She asked Tom to be a guest teacher, sharing what he had learned from his experiences on Earth. "The most dangerous thing about any predator," Tom explained to his first class of eager alien students, "is not its claws or teeth or poison. It is the ability to think ahead of its prey." He smiled at the room full of attentive faces. Humans learned to survive on Earth not by being the strongest or fastest or most dangerous. We learned by being the ones who could think 3 steps ahead of everything that wanted to hurt us. A small, furry student raised her paw. "And that is why you were able to capture the Ravager." "I did not capture it," Tom corrected gently. "I just convinced it to capture itself by going where I wanted it to go." The class was always full after that, though many students still preferred to attend through holographic projection from other rooms. Tom did not mind. He understood that respect and friendship sometimes needed to start from a safe distance. But he was happy that they were no longer afraid of him. They were finally ready to learn from him instead.